Now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Florence Villeminot. This week we're going to focus on perhaps the Frenchest thing of all, the French language, and a language that is constantly evolving and constantly challenging.
Absolutely, Evan. If you're learning French, you'll know that French is a very rich language and a complex language. There are so many vocabulary words. Most dictionaries count about 60,000 words, and each year about 100 words are added to the main dictionary, so Le Petit Robert and Le Larousse. Let's take a look at some of the most recent additions. You'll be surprised to see that they're pretty English, in fact. For instance, you've got the word crush in French, and then you've got some Frenchified versions of English words like ghoster, to ghost, bader, to have a bad reaction to something, and instagrammable, Instagrammable, so something that's worth taking a photo of. Modern words that can be tricky for older generations.
Instagrammable, ça vous fait penser à quoi?
Oh là, à rien du tout, moi.
Oh, c'est un mot récent, mais Instagram, oui, mais Instagrammable, non.
Quelqu'un qui regarde trop, qui est trop accro à Instagram,
So new words that can be tricky sometimes, but these new words are proof that French is very much a living language. It's not like Latin that's dead, as they say. The language is constantly evolving to keep up with the changing world and changes in society as well.
Every nation takes its language seriously, perhaps none more so than the French. They have a special institution that protects the French language.
Absolutely. It's called l'Académie Française, the French Academy. It is the official guard dog of the French language. It's located in a beautiful building in the very heart of Paris, and it was founded in 1635 by the Cardinal Richelieu. So it consists of 40 members. They're elected for life. They're called the Immortals, les Immortels, and they wear a green costume, and they even have a sword to protect the French language. Now, what does the French language need protecting from? Well, in recent decades, the Academy has been hell-bent on defending the French language from the influence of English, and we just saw all those English words slipping into the French language. Well, thanks to globalization and modern technology, countless English words have really slipped into the English language, and many Immortels are outraged by what they call this English invasion, although some point out that many of these words were actually French to begin with.
Les mots français ont complètement fabriqué la langue anglaise à un moment donné, dans le passé. Et puis souvent, ils sont revenus. Des mots français qui sont devenus des mots anglais reviennent et nous ne nous rendons pas compte que ce sont des mots français. Nous disons, oh là là, mais quelle horreur, nous sommes envahis.
So what's an example of one of these words that's gone back and forth? Well, in France, when we talk about celebrities, we talk about les people. People, so it comes from the English word people, which actually comes from the French word peuple.
There's something that you must sort of give a sense of and clear up, because recent years the Academy has been up in arms against what is basically an attempt to make the French language less sexist.
That's right. The Academy says it's staunchly opposed to something that we call l'écriture inclusive in French, which is essentially a gender-neutral way of writing French. According to the Academy, it puts French in a mortal danger. So what is so threatening? Well, just to walk you through it, in French, there is a rule that you learn when you're a little kid, which is le masculin l'emporte sur le féminin, masculine beats feminine. So if you have a mixed gender group, but there is one element that's masculine, well, the whole group will be referred to as masculine. And inclusive writing, you can see these little dots here, that's essentially a way of indicating that in a group, well, there could be a woman or something that's feminine. And this kind of writing is already used in higher education. It's becoming more and more mainstream. People text this way, etc. But language purists say it's ugly, it's unreadable, and it's complicated, although others say it's really important, especially when little kids are learning French.
On construit dans la tête des petites filles et des petits garçons un monde dans lequel il est normal de ne pas voir de femmes. Donc on voit bien que c'est essentiel de remettre de la place, de donner de la place aux femmes comme aux hommes, pour que les petites filles et les petits garçons puissent se projeter à toutes les places de la société et se construire librement en dehors de tout stéréotype.
So as it stands, learning French in France, wherever you learn it, is complicated, with the neutral sense, perhaps even more so. And it's standing, this is interesting, it's actually slipping on a world stage in terms of languages spoken.
That's right, because once upon a time, French was the official diplomatic language. It is still very vibrant. It's used in many international organizations, the UN, the EU, even the Olympic Games. It's spoken on 5 continents. It's the native language of nearly 300 million people. It's the 5th most spoken language in the world. It's an official language in 30 countries, in nearly 30 countries. So all these things are great, but the future of French is in question in many ways. In many countries where French was predominant traditionally, well, its standing is slipping somewhat, particularly in former French colonies, which tend to associate French with somewhat of a painful past, if you will. Increasingly, many of these countries are actually turning towards English as a language of business and international communication, etc. And the French president, Emmanuel Macron, is very much aware of this. In fact, he pointed it out at the most recent summit of Francophone countries.
La francophonie s'étend par la, si je puis dire, la démographie de certains pays qui sont dans la francophonie, mais qu'il y a aussi des vrais reculs qui sont là ces dernières décennies. Il faut être lucide. Dans les pays du Maghreb, on parle moins français qu'il y a 20 ou 30 ans. C'est une réalité.
Emmanuel Macron wants to once again make French the universal language of diplomacy and peace. And so there are very many reasons to be optimistic about the future of the French language. It's still going to be alive and kicking. And all this might be motivating if you're learning the subjunctive right now.
Flo, bien joué, perfectly clear, thank you, and that's all we have time for. In the meantime, tweet your questions to @FloVillamino and check out our website, france24.com.